Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. Today, we're going to be making, plants from trash. And when I say trash, I'm talking like just tape and styrofoam and random little containers. We're also going to be using floral wire. Now that I got it from the local dollar store and masking tape. Most people have that in their houses. It doesn't matter what width of masking tape, any masking tape will do. Now these are creamer containers I got from when I had breakfast the other morning. So I just kept them and washed them out. And they're made of plastic, so they're kind of slick. So I used my gesso to paint the outside of them so they'll be easier to catch the color when I actually paint them with my acrylic paint. Now I prefer for my pots to look like terracotta or ceramic. You can paint your pots whatever color you like. So here I'm going to show you a quick example of how it will look when it's complete. And I definitely have a tea bag handy because tea is what I use for my potting soil. So I painted the little plastic cup, kind of a orange terracotta color, because to me it made it look like the baked clay pots. And I actually did 2 coats, so 1 coat of the gesso and 2 coats of the acrylic, and I allowed it to dry. Now, dolls, although I'm using a creamer container to put my plants in, you can use anything. You can have a lid to any kind of container as long as it's within scale. Now, dolls, I packed my pots with a small piece of styrofoam. So you can use any type of styrofoam you have to pack it. And that's how the tape will look after you've done. So let's go ahead and get started. So you lay your tape sticky side up. And after you lay it, you cut little pieces of the green floral wire and lay it on top of the sticky part of the tape. Now you can lay it as neat and as straight as you want. It really is not going to change the design of your leaves in the long run, but do as you like. You can take it all the way to the other side. I like to do it midway so I'll have a little freedom on the end. So I had several different shades of green, and the more the merrier. I believe that a lot of times projects like this, the layering effect looks better. So I used several shades of green, and you can use whatever you have. Don't feel hindered if you don't have a lot of shades of green. And even after you finish the project, if you get some more green and you want to add to it, you definitely can do that. But I start by just doing both sides of the tape with the wire in it, and just do just a full coat on both sides. Now I know, again, dolls, this is looking very pre-K, but just trust the process. It's going to get better. And this was kind of a medium green. I have hunter green, I have apple green. I'm even using the green that I used on the beadboard in the Rooming House Dollhouse kitchen. So free yourself and just use multiple layers. Now I kept the darker colors to do the actual leaves of my plants. And then I use the lighter shades for toning and to define the veining of the leaves. You'll see what I mean in a moment, dolls. And after I got a pretty solid coating, now it doesn't have to be solid because plants aren't really like that. A lot of them that I've seen aren't like that. And you can do extra touch up after the project is complete. So don't be worried if there are some splotchiness when you peel it up, if it's not solid. Now you don't want to do the paint too thick, because if you do it too thick, you can cause it to crack, and that'll look really unrealistic on a plant leaf. Okay, so I did my multiple layers here, and then we're going to allow that to dry. Now, dolls, this is what I call the fun part. So you're going to cut your leaves out in like little blocks between each piece of wire. Now, you can be as creative or as detailed as you want in this particular portion, because this is your plant. I have a tendency to like plants that look like hostas. Again, dolls, like hostas. They're not going to be exact. Again, these are not going to be botanically correct, so by no stretch of the imagination. But I'm having fun and I like my plants. At the end of the day, that's all that's important. So you make your leaves the way that you like them. And if you're pleased, that's all that matters. So just take your time because you don't want to rush through this because you want it to look really neat. The scissors I'm using are not particularly sharp. I actually probably should have used a pair that were a little bit sharper so I could get more defined or smooth edges. But either way, dolls, if you want to refine your plants more after you've completed them, you always can. It's just tape. And after I completed the shapes of all of my leaves, it was time for us to get ready to stuff the pots. Now, dolls, when I say stuff the pots, I mean put something in the bottom of your pot so that your plant will be able to stick into it. I actually used just some old styrofoam and put a few pieces in there and glued them. And then little by little, I began to add my leaves. Now, when you add your leaves, again, it's going to look really, really pre-K in the beginning, but just take your time. Now, I tried to add them more toward the center, and then you can arrange them in a little while after you get a good body of your plant in. And you want to think about how an actual plant grows. So you don't want to just stick the leaves in at random because there actually should be connected to a vine. Now, if you would have liked to, you could have twisted a piece of wire and wrapped all the little pieces around a bigger piece of wire to give it more of a stalk effect. But I was just doing a short potted plant, so I was putting all of my pieces of wire toward the center. So I kept adding the leaves and pushing them around and arranging them because I'm actually going to do more arranging after I've filled it because I didn't think it looked full yet. So you want your plant to look bountiful. You don't want it to look sparse. So you definitely want to make more leaves than you need. It's better to have more than less because it's kind of a bummer to have to stop and then make more leaves. And if you have extra leaves when you're done, just save them in a little baggie for another project. So then I added more Gorilla Wood glue to the top of the styrofoam because if I begin to put my soil in, it won't just stick to the styrofoam. So you want to make sure that you have an ample amount of glue in there. Now don't overfill it with the glue where it'll get real messy and mess up your pot. I just put a little bit, and the Gorilla Wood glue, if you put a nice amount, it'll start to spread out. Okay, and I just kind of am gonna just arrange it. Now you see how I pulled the plants kind of up and out of the way, and that's going to help with my final design to the plants. I hope you dolls can see what I'm doing there based on that angle. The glue is kind of melting around, and I'm just pushing it a little bit with a toothpick just to get it into the areas where it hasn't fallen. So make your glue coverage as even as possible. But even if you miss some spots, you can add more glue and add more tea on top of it. It's going to dry clear. It'll be fine. Now you see how I kind of narrowed my leaves and pushed them all together to put the glue in? To me, that looks more realistic than when I first put them in the pot. And it's going to help them a lot because of the glue and the styrofoam. So just shake your tea around. It's going to be messy, just like potting a real plant. And if you need to, use something to scoop up some of those little extra bits of tea to fill in the areas. You don't have to get any more out of the tea bag. Just kind of sweep that together. So there's nothing wasted. You use all of that, and actually when you're done, you can sweep up the rest of that tea and save it in a small bag for another project. Don't throw it away because with miniatures, you're only using a little bit. So after I filled it as much as I could, I can see around the tops that I'm actually going to need to touch up my plant, but it's okay. I can do that after I get done. So now I'm beginning to shape my leaves and kind of bend them out to look a little bit more plant-like. And I'm definitely going to have to shape those leaves up a little bit more with a sharper pair of scissors. So don't worry, dolls, if things don't turn out perfect in the beginning of the process. You can trim it up and perfect it as you go. The more you turn it and look at it, you'll decide what needs to be done. And you see my striping is not straight, but I'm not worried because I'm going to do several layers of color. And by the time the multiple layers of color get on, and when I get to the point where I glaze the leaves, it won't be noticeable that the lines weren't straight. But definitely do what makes you feel comfortable. Make your plant look as beautiful as you want it to look, so it's something that you're proud to display in your setting. So take your time with this. You don't have to rush. Again, don't create unrealistic deadlines. Now, I worked on this for a couple evenings because I did several different plants. So take the time that you need to make it like you like. You can even use a picture for inspiration. But you can do your plants whatever way you like because this is your project. So I went ahead and made my veins, and this is where I was making what I called those filler pieces. They didn't have any wire in them, but you can stick them in later if you feel like your plant looks a little sparse. So I was just trying to add the same layers and veining and variegation to these that I gave the original plants. And another thing, I want to let you dolls know that the paint will look a little bit bright at first, but for some reason it just kind of dies down and melts into the tape, so the stripes won't look as bright as they appear to be right now. You'll see what I mean soon. So I went on with the bright apple green. So I started with the hunter, and now I'm doing the apple, and I also had a color called fresh cut grass. So yeah, I used multiple layers of green, and like I said, the options are endless, depending on what type of plant you want to make. So use inspiration for a plant that actually exists in nature, or you can do like I do. I make up plants that probably only exist inside my doll houses. So have fun with this, dolls. So after I turned the plant and got to all of the areas with all of the different colors that I had, I allowed it to dry. Now we're going to do our finishing touches. So I had a couple plants that I had done previously, so I was going to do the same treatment to them. I wanted to put the glazing on, which was going to give them a slight shine. Now, I like to use the satin Mod Podge. I don't want the gloss. I just wanted the satin to give them a little sheen so they'll look more natural like real plants. And it looks white when it's going on, but it's going to dry perfectly clear. And it's actually going to even assist your colors to kind of meld together so they won't look so stripy. It'll just look more natural. So again, dolls, it's going to look a little pre-K for a few minutes, but it's going to dry and the color is going to meld together, and you'll see how beautiful your creation is. So remember, dolls, I mentioned that I was going to refine my leaves because my original scissors were a little bit dull. This is the point when I do that because I can really see the shape of my design, and I really know exactly what I want to trim up. So after glazing them, I started to shape the leaves and kind of bend them into the shape that I wanted them to be, so I could really see what parts needed to be refined. And when I got them shaped the way I wanted them and my Mod Podge was dry, I just began to trim them with a sharper pair of scissors, just neaten up the leaves so that they look more realistic than they did in my original rough cut. Now you can really see the texture of the tape. So you just take your time with your project, dolls. Don't rush through it. And even if you make a mistake, don't feel defeated. You can go back and fix anything. Again, remember, it's just tape. And if you want to add some more pieces, use some of your spare ones that you had from the beginning of the project. Now, if you enjoyed this video, dolls, definitely let me know in the comments. Also, like, share, and subscribe. And always look for me on Mondays and Wednesdays after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Always stay tuned so you don't miss out on what's happening here on Little Gretchen's workshop or with the Rooming House Dollhouse. And a special thank you to my subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you. And also to those of you who haven't subscribed but you're watching, I do appreciate you as well. I sure have enjoyed you, dolls, today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.